Okay, Chair, we're live on YouTube whenever you're ready.
Okay, good. Hi, welcome everyone to the exec meeting. It's Tuesday, the 27th of October. I don't think we've got any apologies for absence. I think everybody's here. Is that correct?
And we have apologies from Councillor Thompson as the chair of OSB and Councillor Story substituting for her.
Okay, thank you for that. Any declarations of interest?
I think I've got one, Andy.
Yep.
I've submitted an application for the small scheme allocation.
Okay. I don't know whether you need to give any details of that. I assume not, but I guess Sylvia and or the team can make contact with you and follow up if there's anything needs discussing. Thanks for pointing that out. I'll assume there's no other declarations of interest. The minutes are all there. They've been published. I guess if anybody's got, any adjustments, improvements, amendments to those, give us a shout. If I don't hear anything in a few seconds, we'll just crack on. Okay, that's all good. So then we go straight on to the business, which I think first is me talking about the report on future office accommodation. Okay, I'll give you a little brief narrative. So as everybody knows, I think last year we...
Sorry, Chair, as a councillor seems to have lost connection.
I'm sorry, Sylvia, I didn't catch all of that. What were you saying?
I'm just letting you know that Councillor McCabe seems to have lost connection. Looks like he's back.
Okay, great. I think during this meeting, if we lose people, unless it seems to be critical at that point, I think we'll just have to crack on. Does everyone agree? Otherwise, I think we'll be stopping and starting all over the place. So, regarding the first item, which is about future office accommodation. The history of this is basically there's a building. I'm in my office now. To my right is building 1 Centre Square. It's the yellowy, goldy one. And that was planned for the council staff. The council staff are working in pretty poor conditions. Obviously, right now they're all working from home. But the building is knackered. It's tired. It's expensive to run, and it's not good for morale or productivity. So a move is good. It's important at some point. I actually deliberately halted and paused the staff move into the new building. And the idea was we would try and get more value out of it by renting it out instead of just occupying it ourselves. And that's worked out fine after some time and some effort and a little bit of stress. That's actually worked out really well because we've got two great tenants now going to occupy that building. That's going to help the council's financial position. It's helped give them a new base in town, cementing them into the heart of Middlesbrough with their jobs and their hopefully lots of growth. So that's fantastic news. It does mean that we need to find somewhere else for the council. So then we then looked at moving to Centre North East. We would love to bring our older buildings back to life, especially ones that have stood empty for years. I know a little bit about this concept, and basically it's far harder than people realise. Bringing old buildings back to life always involves lots of compromises. It involves trying to work with things that are old, which means extra money and extra time. And it means that what you end up with isn't perfect. Nonetheless, we were really keen to get Centre North East back to life. So we actually approved a scheme where we would look to move into that building. All the costings and all the fine details was to be scrutinised. And what we learned over time is that was going to be a really expensive move. It's still a possible move, but moving into Centre North East would only be financially feasible and viable if the council could also attract lots of other tenants into that building. The building is about 3 or 4 times the size that we need as a council, so we would need to rent lots of space out. As we know, the office market is changing due to COVID, and we don't know what demand will be like in 2 and 4 and 6 years' time. So moving into Centre North East would be a huge financial risk. It would give us a building that wasn't particularly eco-friendly, and it would give us a building that would only have probably another 40 to 50 years of life left. So it may not be our best option. And what we're looking at now is alternatives, especially from a green perspective and from a longevity perspective. What we'd like to do is find a building, see if we can build or convert a building that might be able to last 100 or 200 years. So we're undergoing that right now. And what we're trying to do with this piece of work, this paper that's come to exec, is just to approve or note the fact that we continue to look for the best solution for council staff when it comes to offices. We need something cost effective. Centre North East would cost about 50 million quid. We need something that's eco-friendly, and we need something that's likely to last for 100 to 200 years instead of 50. So, so I'm actually asking for the exec to approve and note this piece of work going on, where we have an ongoing examination of other options. I don't know if there are any comments or questions.
Chair.
So that's good. So, Anthony,
Chair,
hi.
I believe Councillor High wishes to speak.
Yeah.
It won't unmute.
No, you're fine, Anthony. We can hear you.
Okay now. Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, sorry, it's telling me that I'm still muted. I think in light of the report, I think it's important to say that obviously during these unprecedented times, the effective management of public purse has never been so critical. In response to significant shifts in the current world too, I think it's fair that extra due diligence is applied to some of the decisions that are being made. We need to make sure that we are comfortable with the next steps because of the level of commitment that's attached. So I think it's only right and fair that a review and a better understanding of the potential change in future use is added into the previous decision that was made. But I think I'm in support of the report in relation to managing that and the next steps that are going to be put forward to us as an executive.
Okay, thank you, Anthony. That makes complete sense. I think Councillor Hodgson was next.
Thank you, Chair. I just think it's a positive thing to do is to have a look at other places. I totally agree with what you're doing. Obviously, with COVID, it's changed things an awful lot. We probably will still have a lot of people working from home, even in the future, because people have now got used to working from home, and a lot of people quite enjoying working from home. So the One North East building would be far too big. And like you say, Chair, without letting it off to other firms and things, which is another difficult thing to do, we would be in a bad situation, really, if we went ahead with that. The other thing I would like to point out is that up to now, we have not spent any money looking at One North East building, so we haven't wasted any money on that. Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And Councillor Story was next.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I want to welcome the funding as well. I think it's really important that we study what the best option is. This is obviously the third iteration now of moving staff from what is a building that's not fit for purpose. And what staff really need is certainty. The staff have been absolutely phenomenal during COVID, and particularly getting us through the crisis and continuing to do that. So whatever certainty we can provide and show them the best option that gives them an office that is of the highest possible standard, that can only be a good thing.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that. And Councillor Waters, I think. Ashley, did you want to say something?
Yeah, it's just a really quick one, just to say well done on letting the officers in Centre Square, because it could have been a really big white elephant. It was the right decision not to move the council staff and then provide financial longevity for the future. So just a really well done on that one. And let's look for something that's, like you say, is going to serve the purpose for the longer term for our staff that have been, like Matt said, absolutely phenomenal throughout this.
Thanks, Ashley. I think that was everyone who wanted to speak, and I think all the comments there were all sensible, all made sense to me. I have to stress that I mean, I've been involved in letting the offices, but really it's it's the people who work in Regen that have done all of the work, and well done to them for that. It's great news. Yeah, we do. We need to give staff reassurance. We also need to make sure we get great value for money. We need the eco credentials. And listen, if after some advice, and what we're going to do now is get the best advice, sensible, sound advice, is we mustn't rush it. And you know what? We don't need to, because of course, no staff will be rushing back to work in the foreseeable future. So we have a bit of time to make sure we do this right. And what we need to do is get the right advice. And do you know what? If the right advice that seems credible is we move to centre north east, I'm actually fine with that. But I just want to make sure that we're absolutely doing that with all of the info, all of the facets of that decision making, which are staff comfort, staff productivity, cost, and environmentally friendliness. We need to have all of those things measured. Okay, that's great. That's all done. Thank you for that. I think everyone who wanted to speak did. That's really good. The next one is actually about governance and decision making. There's an update here. I don't know whether Charlotte would be comfortable talking about this, as it might be more your area of expertise, Charlotte. I know it's not particularly, doesn't need a key decision or anything, but would you mind giving an overview on this?
That's fine, Chair. I believe that there's a vote required on the previous report, though. Is that right, Sylvia?
Do you know what? You're right. And because everyone agreed, I took that as being so. So we need a formal vote. If anybody disagrees, please let me know. If anybody disagrees or isn't comfortable with the looking at alternatives to centre north east. Okay, take that as approved. That's great. Thank you. And sorry, Charlotte, that's back with you now to discuss the governance.
Okay,
So
thank you, Chair.
the reason I'm asking Charlotte is because she is the official monitoring officer. She's also the head of legal. So she is far better qualified than me or anybody else to talk about this issue.
Thank you, Chair. So this report covers decision-making during the COVID pandemic. And before I go into a summary of the report's main points, can I point out a minor amendment, please, to the first page of the report in the box entitled Proposed Decisions. And at the third bullet point, it should read that the executive notes the planned adjustments to decision-making processes to reflect those lessons learned. So this report, Chair, covers a number of points, and the executive is asked to note 3 points. Firstly, that governance arrangements that support decision-making during the pandemic and decisions taken from June to September. Secondly, the Council's undertaken a lessons learned process on its response to COVID and to implement some changes as a result of that lessons learned process. And third, the executive is asked to note the planned adjustments to decision making to reflect the lessons learned, which include a discrete coronavirus plan, which builds on the existing business continuity plans that we have for a flu pandemic. Obviously, coronavirus is different, so we are working on that plan, which will be ready by the end of this month. Updated guidance for officers on decision making, and an updated report format for officers and executive members to use. And then finally, the executive is asked to approve the receipt of a quarterly update report on COVID decision making from February 2021. And that report, it's proposed, will be presented alongside existing updates on the strategic plan and the Council's medium-term financial plan position, and which will also be provided to the Overview and Scrutiny Board. So that's the point on which we need a decision today, Chair, if that's possible.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Charlotte. Any questions, anyone? Doesn't look like any questions. Okay, so in that case, does everyone, obviously everyone has to note and everyone has to also approve. Do people note and approve the relevant pieces in the paperwork? There's Councillor Hobson there. Yes, Chris, what's your question?
No, just put my hand up to approve, Andy.
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, so that's great. So that's all approved. No questions. That's great. Thank you very much. And I think the next bit is actually going over to Councillor Hobson to talk about the member small scheme allocation.
Thank you, Chair. This presentation is regarding a small scheme which gives every councillor the opportunity to bid for a scheme in their ward up to the value of £15,000. The schemes received were pedestrian crossing in the Avenue Linthorpe, pedestrian crossing on Colby Newham Way, fencing gates on Thorntree Park, CCTV on Saltwell's Playground, traffic calming on Tollsby Road, Acklam, off-street parking on the Oval Brookfield, and traffic calming on Turnberry Way, Martin, pedestrian crossing on Cleavegate, Nunthorpe, CCTV lighting on Stonedale Walk on Trimden. Based on all the scoring that was done by officers and subject to additional match funding from services, we were hoping that all of those schemes I've just read out will be successful. Further than that, we have another 5 schemes which, following match funding and the current 2021 allocation of money to the small members scheme, we are hoping that they can be also considered to go through on next year's funding. So what I'm asking at the moment is that the first schemes are approved and the second schemes, which is pedestrian crossing Newham Way, CCTV lighting Trimden, CCTV Saltwell's Playground, pedestrian crossing Linthorpe, and fencing gates in Thorntree Park. What I'm asking is that those schemes are endorsed for the scheme for future consideration. So we're hoping that you will endorse them so that we can probably take them forward with next year's funding. But the first schemes that are read out, which is 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 schemes, we would like if you would approve.
Thank you, Chris. So just to be clear, so there are two asks here. One is the approval of this year's, and then an endorsement of a plan for next year, which isn't the same as approving.
That's quite correct.
Okay, good. Any questions? I see Mika has got a hand up.
Hi, Chris. Well, I've got a bit of there, so I do apologise. So I've got down here that my scheme's actually going to be deferred pending sort of further public consultation and technical assessment. Is that right?
I've had to put you on mute, Chris. If you could open your microphone for me again, please. Councillor Hobson, can you open your microphone and repeat what you've just said to Councillor Smiles, please?
Councillor Smiles, I think that one's gone for approval. I think they said that we could get that one in for approval.
Oh, that's excellent. Thank you very much.
Okay. Any other questions? Councillor Story.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to say how important this budget is. I think this allowance that we get as councillors is really important. It provides an opportunity for members to identify issues in their wards and then have them addressed on behalf of local people, and to listen to what people on the ground are telling us, and then pick up on those issues. And it sets funding aside for that, which means we get that kind of direct access as elected members to funding to support things in our wards. And one of the examples on the list from the Avenue, the zebra crossing that Theo Furness has been working on, that's something very close to my heart because I walk my kids across there every day, and I know how hard Theo has worked with the police, with the community speed watch, picking up evidence and working really hard on this in the run up to putting the bid in, putting all that effort to get that scheme brought forward. And it'll make a huge difference to people in the community, and all of those schemes will do similar in those wards. And it just means that people can see real direct impact of what their elected members do on their behalf in their local area, addressing issues that they see every day. So it's a tremendously valuable report, and I'm really pleased that the schemes are being taken forward, and this long-standing fund is still in place and still making a difference in people's lives in Middlesbrough.
Okay, thank you for that. Makes sense.
Can I just respond to that?
Yes, apologies.
Thank you for that, Councillor Story. It is one of the things that I was asked when I took over the position, and one of the things that I did actually say was that it is important that councillors do have a say on this small amount of money. It is the only thing that you can actually say that you do have a 100% say on, that you can actually choose what you want to do with that little bit of money. And I do think it's very important. So thank you for that.
Okay, and we've got another question from Councillor Smiles.
It was just to agree with what Councillor Story said, really. I mean, the roads that I've asked for sort of extra measures on, the pedestrian crossing on Cleavegate, there was a mum injured on that road before lockdown, and I think there'll be real relief in Nunthorpe to see that that's been tackled. So I just wanted to pop that on the record.
Okay, that's great, thank you. So, sorry, Councillor Davison, do you want to speak? My apologies.
Yes, thank you so much, Chair. This is so important to councillors, just as Mika said, and Councillor Story. But when can we expect these crossings, etc., to actually happen? Because some years ago, I got money for cameras, and it took about a year and a half for them to be installed. So, do we have a time limit on when these will actually happen?
Sorry, Councillor Davison, we don't have a time limit, as I can say it'll be done within a month or what have you. But I do know that we've waited long enough now. They know that those schemes are out there wanting to be done. So I will push for them to be done as soon as possible.
Yeah, I'll add there actually to what Chris just said, is that, yeah, absolutely. We need to push these as fast as possible. I do know, though, with crossings, I believe you need to go for some kind of consultation, and there's a minimum period, so that will obviously reduce our ability to move really fast. But we need to make sure that the council moves as fast as it legally can once we've committed the money. Yeah, good point. Okay, so with all that in mind, do we take it then that we please let me know if you don't approve the schemes for this financial year? Anybody doesn't approve? Okay, that's approved. Yeah.
Just clarify, because what the report is actually saying is that in point 8 is that the first 5 schemes are fully approved to go ahead, subject to service area match funding. The remaining 4 schemes, one of which is the scheme Councillor Smiles is referring to. At point 11 in the report, it's saying it's proposed that members defer the remaining schemes pending the outcome of public consultation and more detailed technical assessments regarding their individual viability and match funding is available. Them schemes can then be approved and funded from the 2021 budget. So the first 5 schemes can be funded from the 1920 budget, and the remaining 4 schemes subject to match funding from the service areas. However, point 10 in that report also says that match funding is not currently available for the services for the schemes in point 11. So I'm not sure whether match funding is supposed to be found elsewhere.
Right. So
I think we were just waiting for the departments to say that they could match fund it, and I think that's why that the last schemes were actually postponed until next year, because that funding wasn't there. So I think that will be found somewhere for next year. I don't think we have to go and find our own match funding.
So shall we have a vote on the stuff for this year and have a caveat that if it's subject to any funding, that needs to be achieved, and then have us all note the plan for next year, subject to all things being equal? Is that right? We have a vote subject to any funding hurdles, and then we have a note of next year's items.
Yeah.
Sylvia, does that make sense?
Sorry, my unit wasn't working. Yeah, so what we're voting on is that the first 5 schemes are approved to go ahead. The second 4 are approved, subject to this year's budget, but subject to the technical consultation and public consultation taking place.
Yeah, and we'll use the phrase endorse. Is that right? Use the phrase endorse for the second one. Okay, that's great. Miko needs to chip in now. Come on then.
Yeah, it was just to say, please can we have the public consultation and the technical assessment done as soon as possible, because the 4 remaining schemes all relate to safety on our roads, so it's really important that that's done as quickly as possible.
Okay. Great, thank you. I think we're ready to vote. I think everybody understands. We're voting to approve the schemes for this year, where all the ducks are in line and it can absolutely go ahead. Yep, so let's do that first. Let me know if you don't approve. Okay, so we are approved. That's good. That's very good. And then we're actually looking to endorse proposed schemes for next year, which may have hurdles to do with match funding or other. But there are schemes that are proposed and expected to go ahead, but there are some hurdles, and I'm asking people to let me know if they don't endorse those. Okay, so everybody endorses those. So I think we've fulfilled that, Sylvia. Is that right? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, good. That's all done. So the next one then is on to Ashley Waters to talk about the adoption of development briefs for sites in Hemington North and Hemington Grange South.
Thank you, Chair. So yeah, like you said, we're looking for the executive to adopt the design briefs for these 2 sites. The proposals here are to ensure that we develop a high quality housing in the area for the existing residents that are there and for the people that we want to move into the area. It does affect the Stainton and Thornton ward, and the ward members consult on the draft briefs as well with regards to this. I think the really important thing on this one is we've been out to consultation. It was later than we wanted. We've done it in June and in August, when we would have liked to have it done in April. But we've listened to people, we've emailed, we've sent letters, we've placed notices around so that we can get as much engagement as possible. And on both sides, we've received around about 30 comments received. And again, the really important part of this is we've listened, as the Mayor set out in his vision, that he wanted to have open consultations and to discuss with people. We've done exactly that. So from this, there was concerns about certain aspects. However, we think we've addressed that. So once the Hemington Grange site sold, part of the capital receipt will be retained for the infrastructure improvements, which will be secured through the 106 agreements that we have. If the site wasn't owned by the council. The precise figures will be dependent on the value of the capital receipt, but will be expected to provide the following. So at Hemington Grange South, 10% of the capital receipt to be allocated for the provision of affordable housing off-site. The developer will be expected to provide 5% affordable housing on-site. There'll be £159,295 per net developable hectare for the transport improvements in the area. An amount for provision of education facilities, and an amount for provision of the flood alleviation scheme. And on the Hemington North, we're going to make Section 278 and Section 38 agreements for highway improvements. Section 106 to ensure that dwellings remain affordable, and Section 106 agreement that the first occupiers of each dwelling will be offered the choice of either a bus pass to the maximum value of £250, or cycle accessories to the maximum of £250 as well. And again, this is really important that we've done this because we've listened to the concerns that the residents in the area had, and I think we've really addressed them in that we've took this to the developers and said, this is what we need from you. And again, it's listening to the people, making sure that everyone's on board with what we're doing in that area. So I'm open to any questions with regard to that.
Okay. Councillor Hobson, I think, was first.
Thank you, Chair. You said there was some money for education, Councillor Waters. Does that mean that we'll be putting a new school in there, or will it mean that they will find places at one of the other schools there? And also, you know, I am very keen that there is a small shop in there. I would really like to see a small shop. So can you give us any information on that? Thank you.
Absolutely. these conversations have been had, and Paul Clark will tell you, it's something that I've really chased up on for you, because I know how important it is that we do that as well and provide these facilities in the area. So it's something that we're working on. I can't promise anything with regards to shops. It is something that we're looking at, and we will work with the developers to see what we can do. The education facilities are still subject to confirmation, so we're waiting on exactly what we'll be doing. I can't say we're going to build a new school, make further provision available in other schools until we have the confirmation of exactly what's going to be put forward. But it is something that we will keep chasing on, as again, it is really important to the residents of that area and for the whole of Middlesbrough.
Okay, great. Councillor Davison, you had a question.
Yes, could we consider, Councillor Walters, when we're looking at the types of houses that we have, could we there again consider that we have some bungalows, because there's a huge shortage of bungalows within Middlesbrough, and could that possibly be looked at, please?
Yeah, I think it needs pushing on. It's something that we hear in every area, in every ward, that bungalows are needed and wanted. So again, if it's financially viable for the developers, then yes, we will look at that. Paul might be able to offer some more insight as to what we can and actually can't do with regards to requesting bungalows on the site.
I'll come in there, Chair, if I may, just to answer that. Obviously, the purpose of the brief is to help us market the site and provide design guidance for when the site comes forward. Certainly, when the council market the site and the applications come forward, we can look to negotiate an element of bungalows as part of that. As Councillor Walters says, at that time, then obviously the developer will look at viability and issues, but we will push for bungalows, and it's an issue that we're very keen to address as part of the local plan review as we go forward as well. So it is something we are acutely aware of, and it is something we are looking to address as much as we can.
Okay, great. Thank you, Paul. Any more questions? Okay, that's good. That's good. Thank you. I think then that if people are not in agreement with this, please let us know and explain why, if you can. Okay, so I think this one is approved also. That's good. Thank you for that. I think that's all of our items. I'm not aware of any urgent or critical things that need discussing here today. If anybody's got anything that's genuinely urgent and that this is genuinely the best forum, shout up now if you fancy it. Okay, good. Well, thank you again to Sylvia, Charlotte, all of the team, Chris and everybody. I'm sure I've forgotten some people, but sorry. But thanks to all the staff for making this happen. Thanks for Paul Clark for coming along and keeping us straight. Great. We will see you all very soon. See ya. Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.